and we're going to get started with our session today on embracing innovation by unlocking blockchain, the technology underneath cryptocurrencies, NFTs, and more. So I thank you for uh, joining me today to dive into what is still considered cutting edge technology here. I was making a comment just before the recording on how some of these technologies are now considered to be a little older compared to our new artificial intelligence technologies that we talked about in the last session. Speaking of, we are brought here in these tech workshops by a wonderful grant provided by the Washington State Micro Enterprise Association. And you'll see here the Pacific Economic Development Council was granted one of those, was given one of those grants, and that has provided us the ability to be here today to talk about future tech. And if you haven't already, I highly recommend checking out the Pacific County EDC website. They have a number of resources available to you, and they're there to help guide you along your business journey, whether it's needing help with accounting, social media. If you need somewhere to go and have meetings, there's an office space, there's printing services available. The EDC is just an amazing resource for the businesses of Pacific County. We are so lucky to have such a wonderful team available to us. So if you haven't checked it out and signed up, highly recommend. They've been instrumental in my business growth. And I am Lynn Westfall, but my business and my pseudonym is the Modem Lisa. And I have been mindful, the technology mindful artist now since 1999, though that technology mindful artist moniker has developed from what was my original moniker with the Modem Lisa. The slogan was where art and technology collide. Because if you go all the way back to 1999, technology was a much different thing, especially when it comes to art. You had tools available, but they were very expensive. They were slow. They were limited in their capabilities. And now with artificial intelligence, you can simply speak what you'd like to have appear as an image or hear or see as a video, and there it is. So quite a different world that we're in now. And some of the technology that's evolved along the way is what's called Web3 technology or blockchain technology. And we're going to talk about what is this blockchain? I'm going to help you in very simple terms to understand what the concept is and why it's relatable to business. How can businesses utilize, how are businesses utilizing blockchain today? Because believe it or not, even though this technology is still considered emerging and is kind of quiet, except for cryptocurrency, which is where it's very loud, right? But other blockchain technology is kind of quietly seeping its way through many different industries, and some of them are very close to home. We're going to talk about some local industries that really should start to consider embracing some of the new blockchain technologies when it comes to supply chain, how it provides transparency throughout each part of the business process required to manufacture things. So we've talked about things like supply chain management in earlier courses, inventory management. But when it comes to providing true identity information along each part of a supply chain, this can be accomplished with this new technology in a way that's not only transparent, but it's also decentralized. So you're not relying on a single entity to control the data anymore. It's more democratized. But there's pitfalls to that as well that we'll discuss, and hopefully you'll find out, what it could mean for your business. And cryptocurrency, right? It's hot. Everybody's kind of seeing it. If you are watching the stock markets or you're just interested in finance at all, you're obviously aware of what's going on in with cryptocurrency because it's being talked about all the time. But it's still, one of those areas that's seen more as play. It's a game, but we're going to talk about how cryptocurrency is working its way into real practice and where it actually can be beneficial to businesses to consider embracing it, especially when it comes to our tourism industry. And then we'll talk about NFTs, or non-fungible tokens, and I'll help you understand what this all means. And even though it may or may not be relevant anymore, depending on who you talk to in the industry, I'll help you to understand if your business, may benefit from NFTs, or at least should understand the lingo to speak better with your customers. Because ultimately, when we're talking about embracing innovation, it's because we want to stay competitive as businesses. We want to make sure that we're aware of what's going on throughout our industry and related industries so that we're always seen as an industry leader and not falling behind. Here, we live on a quiet, tourist-based peninsula where, part of our mantra is that peninsula time to slow down, to not take things quite as seriously. And um, that shouldn't mean, though, that you're not aware of what's going on in a sense that you're falling behind. Because our tourists, the people coming to us, are maturing in their technical knowledge. And the more they see our businesses here embracing it, the more they're going to tell their friends and bring more people back with them and return themselves. So I encourage every business owner here to take a look at these technologies, and all technology really, as a means of connecting more with your customers, pushing your business forward, and just staying on top of what could mean money or resource savings, or just driving more sales for your business. So let's get started. Let's talk about that poll. So the first question, oh, and there's my slide is not working properly, but the first question was, have you ever purchased a digital item in a game or app? And everyone answered yes. So this has been around, maybe since before we had mobile devices. I think in computer games, there was already some in-game purchasing going on way in the early 2005, 2006 era. But definitely as we had mobile devices and mobile games, um, and then of course, when it came to buying music, we were buying digital MP3s instead of physical CDs. So we've all kind of gotten used to the concept that we can pay what we consider physical money for digital items. And in the sense that we've all also embraced having our money in banking and not necessarily ever taking it out as a physical cash item anymore. Um, I got married back in 2008, and at that time, I being in technology and being a very technology embracer, I had direct deposit on my banking. I used my card or PayPal. Um, I never had cash on me already, but I married someone who would cash his paycheck immediately upon getting paid every, 2 weeks or whatever. And he would walk around with all that cash. He would go and get money orders to pay all his bills and send them out, and that would be it. And this was terrifying to me, the concept of it. He would carry around all this cash, and oh my gosh, change. It's just insane. But all of us embrace technology at a different cadence, and it's slowly but surely taken, you know, everyone to a level where we're comfortable paying for things with our phones, which means that our banking data is on a mobile device that is connected to cellular signal that is technically accessible to the world at any given time. How far we've come in such a short amount of time. But when it came to our next questions, I'm just going to pull these all up so they're all even here. Our next questions: have you purchased a cryptocurrency like Bitcoin or Ethereum? This was split 50-50. And I'll be honest, I own Ethereum, or I, lease portions of Ethereum, so to say. But and I've seen NFTs, but not the majority of the population of this peninsula, the demographic of this area that lives here, not necessarily our tourist demographic, which is changing, but the demographic of the people that live here, less than half. But we're going to talk about how the global demographic is a little different on that. So of our group, about half and half have crypto, and half have seen an NFT. And interestingly enough, there has been NFT talk in the news that we'll hit when we get to that section of our presentation today. So what is blockchain? When someone says blockchain, and they're not talking about specifically cryptocurrency or NFTs, when they're just talking about the concept of blockchain. I like to describe this like, imagine you had a ledger book. So I worked with accountants in many different phases of my career. When I was a teenager, I worked for an accounting department doing their filing and sorting. And then later, I worked for a small chemical company. Boy, I've been in so many industries, but it was a family-owned business, and the 70-something-year-old owner adults, their son was the CEO, and he was, kind of in his 50s, vibrant guy. But the parents were still very much managing the business, the mom managing the accounting from a giant physical ledger book where she had to write every transaction by hand. And again, I was always someone that embraced technology. As soon as my bank had online banking, I was there. It was never just having a checkbook. Nope, I used Excel. There was never a point where I wanted to use paper. So, but the concept of this physical ledger existed for all of humanity before we had computers, right? So this physical ledger book where you had to write down everything, inventory movements, every detail of the business. It was important to have this record. And, traditionally, this would be something that was secured, it was locked away, no one else could get access to it. Only a few people in the department would have access to it. And it was at risk, right? It could be lost in a fire, it could be stolen. and it could be altered. So the concept of a physical ledger also meant that the person controlling that physical ledger could, you know, modify things and to their benefit. This is where, shady bookkeeping concepts, with physical ledgers, it was an easier thing because what we're going to talk about now is that the blockchain is a digital ledger. So instead of having this single book, there's duplicated across all different computers around the world and different little nodes. There's little blocks of data. And these blocks of data, without getting too detailed, Arthur, I appreciate your existing details there, but so the blockchain ledger is duplicated across a network of computers called nodes. These nodes are constantly working to verify and record every new transaction. They use cryptography to ensure that it's secure and accurate, and that data, you have provenance. You know where that data came from. You know every movement of every piece, every block. And in order for alterations to happen to the overall ledger, the chain, the group of blocks, all of the blocks have to agree and have that same data within an amount of time. So it's not like someone can just steal a piece of data and alter it. It's very complicated, and it makes altering this data on the blockchain incredibly difficult. It makes for, you have to very much have a target and a sophisticated attacker in order to modify these entries. So it's just important to understand that with blockchain technology, you're getting a level of transparency and security that you can't get in other traditional methods of data transfer and storage, right? These key benefits are that it's decentralized. There's no single point of failure. There's no single entity that can destroy your blockchain. It's transparent. You can see all of the transactions and anyone can see them, not just you. So you can't create fraud. They can't create fraud. It's a level of security that's, and in addition to the security of the technologies that blockchain is built on, which is important to understand as well. This isn't replacing servers. This isn't replacing operating systems and computer software. It is a type of computer software. Typically, blockchain applications are run on a JavaScript base, utilizing HTML and other languages as well along the way. So you have to keep in mind that it is still software vulnerable in a sense. So the number three, it's immutable, meaning that once it's recorded, that data, like I said, it takes a very sophisticated attacker to alter it. Or, if it needs to be altered and removed, it has to be in agreement in that secure and trusted fashion. And again, it's encrypted, so it's highly secure. And in essence, the blockchain is a way to have a permanent tamper-proof record of transactions and data without having to rely on a single centralized authority. It allows for multiple people or parties to control confidentiality and confidentially and securely a digital ledger system. And that sounds really technical, but let's start to relate it to some applications and understand where it's being used in our supply chain management today. So, one of the kind of closer to home applications as I was researching this topic is that it's become useful in supply chain management in many industries, but in seafood traceability, the concept of bait to plate is what they're calling this usage of blockchain technologies, so that along the way, the soft, the seafood producer. So when you get a piece of salmon, you know who caught it, where they caught it, what they used to catch it. And because that supply chain is so critical today, it's so vulnerable to manipulation. And as a consumer of seafood, understanding the levels of different toxins that might be in that fish based on where it came from, or knowing that the labor used to catch that or process that product was labor that um, you know was proper, and they were paid, and they were um, it was appropriately staffed, and knowing if it is farmed, where it was farmed, and what methods were used to farm it. Were they sustainable farming methods? There's actually, moving away from seafood a little bit, there's additional applications, um, something called Farmer Connect Digital Identity. That is providing farmers around the world with a way to confirm the identity of their supply chain, to say that, this spice or this grain or whatever it is that they're exporting from another nation to the United States, to say this is where it came from and this is how it was processed, and to know that that is accurate and traceable along the whole chain. Um, it can also really streamline those processes. And that's why you're seeing large organizations start to embrace this. First, obviously, Walmart is a giant enterprise. They have the ability to adopt technology before many other companies in the world. They're working with IBM to make sure that every part of their process is traceable, and that their supply chain is tracked with different blockchain technology that's along the way providing identification of each step, because if you think about what goes on even in just one Walmart and then the distribution center. They're trying to bring in products from many other countries, move them around the globe. So it's a challenging topic, and when you don't have a clear way to manage and monitor that, or what's existing today for many organizations is that there are many disparate ways to do it, meaning that maybe for the inventory that you bring in to make your product, if you're a manufacturer of something like soap, we've had someone here who owns a business where they provide soap products. So if they were making their own soap, and I actually don't know this to be the case, but they have to source the different ingredients in that soap. How do they know that that soap was fair trade or organic or free of different irritants and allergens? Now they can use different blockchain technology to provide identification between them and their suppliers. But they might use a system today where from their suppliers, they get certificates. Um, Maybe they collect them in a document system and manage it so they know that they have it. Okay. But so then they have to go through a manufacturing and packaging process, and they have to get their packaging from someone, and that has a different process, and maybe that's in a different system. And then when they ship it out, they want to make sure that their shipper isn't doing anything along the way. So you can see how each part of the supply chain has different areas where we're looking to confirm trust, identity, security, and maintain confidentiality along the way. So, this technology, it may be more difficult to start embracing now. But what I'm telling you is that you want to start thinking of these concepts as future proofing your business to keep yourself competitive. Because there's other uses coming along the way too. When we talk about transactional trust, real estate is a huge area for transactional trust, right? Because just for one purchase, there are, there could be a dozen different secure transaction processes that have to happen along the way. You have to have inspections. You might have to have a lawyer involved. You might have to have a title agency, and then there's the state and county and city and whatever other involvement there has to be along the way, of course, the financial involvement. So that process is starting to see a lot of activity in the blockchain application market, where there are companies that are developing different, completely new and disruptive processes using blockchain that we'll probably start to see creep into our area because real estate is kind of a hot thing here. We have people that obviously have to live here for, typical purposes, but we have mostly people that are here on vacation. So they own a property for their own vacation purposes, or they own property for the purpose of rental. And some of the things that we've seen popping up in real estate are services like Lofty, where through the blockchain, investors can purchase property portions that they are then, fractional landlords of a property, and all of the decisions regarding that property have to be approved by every owner of a piece of that property. So it's controlled through the approval of blockchain changes. And this means that there could be thousands of people that own a single property here on the peninsula. Now, I did take a look at Lofty um, in a little more depth before, while working on this session to make sure our area wasn't listed yet. But ironically, I came here about 2 years ago from Cleveland, Ohio, and there were rental units near where I lived that were listed on the service. And I have some different feelings about that. Because there are problems that can arise when you have this decentralized control. How well will the property be maintained? Who does the renter go to when there's really an issue? And what happens in cases where there may be a city or county violation that needs to be addressed and that's impactful to the homeowner, but the owner is responsible for? So there's a lot of areas that are starting to emerge. They're just starting to disrupt. If you think about technology, it always takes an amount of time before these things start to bubble up but the more you stay on top of them, the more you can be ready for your business to pivot when things start to happen. Another area of real estate that we're starting to see emerge with blockchain technology are sort of alternatives to lending, where you can have decentralized sort of loans on your home, where it's an alternative to a home equity loan. It feels a little bit like reverse mortgage to me. There's one of the services is called Vesta Equity, and basically you can put your property on this market to say, you want to take on investors so that you can gain additional um, equity out of your property. But at the end of the day, the debate about true ownership starts to come into play. And I am personally risk adverse when it comes to my property. There are some areas of technology that I fully embrace and I feel comfortable with, but this is one area where I'll say I'm definitely a little more risk adverse. Construction is another transactional area that obviously we have a lot of construction that happens in this area. We see a lot of new homes popping up right on Pacific. But there's a lot of processes in construction that are starting to be automated that have to also be certified or approved, and having that transactional trust, knowing that this is a confirmed and accepted completion, or this is certified that it has been inspected, this title has been transferred, all these different processes along the way during construction, and even up to labor management and payment, speeding up that process really in every industry. This was also mentioned during the farming concepts of blockchain when it came to getting labor paid faster through management of time and confirmation of sort of um, how much product was received and confirmed, so that based on smart contract technology, which is a core of blockchain technology, that smart contract is set up so that based on when certain criteria is achieved, that contract then is approved, moves the process forward based on a known and confirmed set of data. So this is how the blockchain can move forward transactions. And what our biggest industry here? Travel and hospitality. And of course, we're seeing blockchain technology work its way into these industries. Um, One of the more interesting blockchain technologies related to travel and hospitality was an app website called TripKey, TRIPPKI. And I do want to mention part of why I didn't provide an informational sheet with this class, unlike all the other classes, is because the information on this is changing so fast. And there wasn't really a way to tell you, I didn't want to provide you with a list of definitions, because you can always look these things up and you can watch the video later and you can hear me explain them to you. But, what is it worth to have a piece of paper with definitions on them? But none of these sites, these links to things that I provide in the other courses that are really useful, I don't consider any of them really useful for your businesses at this moment. So this class is definitely one of the most that's meant to just be informational for you to understand these concepts, where they're moving, and how they might impact your business in the future. So getting back to um, our travel and hospitality industry, TripKey is a new concept where users can get rewards for using the platform and they can use these rewards to gain things, to earn travel points. Um, it's not as popular yet. It's one of those things that is still kind of an evolving concept. But if you think about how you communicate with your customers, and if you want to create secure communication and secure and transparent activity between your customers, more and more blockchain will become an accessible technology to do that with. More applications will bubble up that will become enticing to provide the end-to-end transactions between you and your customers. And that's why blockchain technology will really, over probably the next 10 years, start to become more relevant to all businesses as they look to ensure the security and identity of the data that they're getting as they transact throughout their business, because more and more is happening digitally. Those things that were happening on paper are now happening on computer. So this is the way to know what you're getting, where it came from, how it got there in one convenient decentralized model. So that was a lot. We're about halfway through our time today. So let me pause and see if there are any questions. I know I still have Arthur's comment to check out here. So we'll just take a little pause. We'll plan to be back in like 3 minutes. If there are not any other questions, but feel free to unmute and chime in if you like.
I'll just mention the cryptocurrency and blockchain is based off of old public key encryption systems. And up until uh, either 97 or 98, I think it was, um, encryption was regulated as if it were munitions. And it's been argued, in my opinion, correctly, that our slow growth in new encryption systems is part of that legacy.
It has been kind of a stalled industry, interestingly, though we don't always get all of what's happening on a federal level. As someone who works with CISA and some of the DoD and other groups in their world, it's very interesting how in some ways there's a lot of very sophisticated work going on, but it doesn't come out to the public so much. It doesn't end up getting embraced by consumer technology. So it ends up like, oh, there's this really awesome encryption algorithm, or, different kind of technology or different way, or even different, languages bubble up this way, like all these different technologies bubble up, and then they just, because they either weren't going to make somebody enough money, or they were too troublesome. I mean, you already mentioned here, the electrical consumption of crypto, and how very concerning it is. Um, so we had PGP for decades, but yeah, agreed. So yeah, it's things like this that you're just like, you don't understand why the industries don't embrace. I'm going through that with software bill of materials and proliferating our security on our software supply chain now, and it's just so interesting that the back and forth with industry, developers. Everybody has their own opinions on things, and that's yeah, that that's why we don't have a very unified tech industry, unfortunately. It's very divided. Hear some intermission music might be nice too. We'll just take another couple minutes. All right. Well, now let's dive into the hot topic, cryptocurrency. So, believe it or not, a third of your customers, if you're a business owner on this peninsula, own cryptocurrency. Now, of between me and the others on this call, two-thirds of us actually owned cryptocurrency, but we were kind of a different group. But so a third of them already own crypto, another third are considering buying it. So there's only a third out there that don't own crypto and aren't considering it. That doesn't mean they don't know it. Most people, over 80% of the population is aware of cryptocurrency because it's such a talked about discussion. So instead of we've talked about how blockchain is this concept of ledgers with entries that are secured, transparent, and traced. So what does it mean when we talk about cryptocurrency? Instead of currency being controlled by a government or a bank, cryptocurrencies are spread across the blockchain. They're decentralized and run on all of these nodes or computers around the world. So that means that no single entity can control or manipulate that currency. Now, the most popular cryptocurrency that everybody's heard of is Bitcoin, but there are literally thousands of different coins out there. I own a coin called Ethereum because it is most popularly used in business. So, what I mean by that, when transactions happen on the blockchain, you have to pay for those transactions. So, there are coins that you can use, like tokens, to pay for the transaction, to pay for goods and services. You can actually use these coins to pay merchants that accept them. We'll talk about that a little bit more, but these transactions that happen on a business level could be what I talked about in the supply chain. If you're going to transfer a title between owners in a real estate transaction, you're going to have to spend some coin to process that transaction. When we talk about NFTs in a little bit, we'll talk about fees related to those too, because that is part of why there's been a sort of decline in the concept as well. So there's Bitcoin, there's Ethereum, there's Dogcoin, I mean, there's coins. You can make your own coin if you really wanted to. But cryptocurrencies at their core, they're secured by encryption, by advanced math concepts that are incredibly difficult to counterfeit. And you can't really double spend these cryptos. The transactions are recorded on the blockchain, so they're transparent. You don't have that intermediary need of having a bank, but we still have intermediary needs because when you had physical cash, you used to keep it in a wallet. Well, now with cryptocurrencies, you have to have a digital wallet. And guess what? That means having a service. Now, this is becoming more prevalent. A few years ago, PayPal started allowing for crypto transactions. So it's a crypto wallet of sorts now. It's not as advanced as some of the other ones. Um, there might be a different delay in your transaction, especially when it comes to getting the crypto back. So some of us more familiar with crypto, and if you watch the regular news, you've heard about, cryptocurrency um, trading company owners like FTC. So these are companies that provide the transactions between cryptos. When you want to buy or sell them, you have to go through these third parties to do so. And when you're going to do something like large scale, obviously you're not going to use something like PayPal, you're going to use one of these other services. So in theory, you're just giving your cash for a digital item through this service, assuming that they're transacting to get the coin or to own the coin, and that coin has value based on what you all agree, just like stocks. We're just agreeing on what we feel the value of this crypto is. Well, unfortunately, in the case of FTC and some of the other applications out there where we've seen criminal cases come into play, these transactions weren't really being completed. Oh, I'm sorry, FTX. Thank you. Sorry. Yes, Sam Bankman-Fried. So thank you for correcting me, Arthur. I appreciate that. Um, FTX. So these exchanges for cryptocurrency, unfortunately, have been highly susceptible to fraud. And that's because the FTC, the doesn't have good oversight on these things. Or is this an SEC concept? I guess both. Not to get lost in that at all. Sorry about that. But um, basically, there's there's transparency in the technology of the blockchain, but that doesn't mean that on the other side there can't still be fraud, just like with a physical bank. So, should you, as a business, accept Bitcoin or other crypto? This is a tough decision to make for any business. I think as you grow, if you're a tourism business, there is value to considering accepting crypto because the more we accept for services, for merchandise, the more we can allow ourselves to be open to international transaction. If the peninsula becomes seen as a place where international travel and transaction can be easier, it can draw in tourism from areas we haven't seen before. And that can bring funding into the area in different ways as well, not just from those international tourists, but from businesses, more and more businesses to support that international tourism. Because transacting in different currency is difficult because of the exchanges, the banks, the fees, it can be easier if we all agree on this decentralized computer controlled currency. But there are still fees involved in those transactions. And depending on when the transaction happens and the price of your item and the application that you're using and how long the transaction takes, determining your revenue from those sales may be very challenging right now. We don't have great ways of managing these transactions in ways that you can effectively plan for them as a merchant. But like we talked about in the artificial intelligence class, yeah, Monday, because that technology is emerging, I think what we're going to see is a real sort of coming together of these two very emergent technologies to create something even better than what we're seeing with the current crypto coins, because none of them have quite gotten it right. And none of the exchanges or wallets or processes is quite effective and truly open and accessible to everyone. I'm here talking to you about this because it's still not very accessible to everyone here on this peninsula. I haven't personally gone to a peninsula retailer that could accept Bitcoin. I'm not surprised by that. I came from a place in Cleveland, Ohio 2 years ago where there were maybe one or two places in the city that had crypto accepted um, payment methods. So it's these things that I'm telling you are still very much on that cutting edge. And we're talking about it just so you can prepare yourself for when it does become relevant to your business because they're not going away. Um, they're very much a part of our culture now that will remain, sustain, and eventually grow. And especially with what we're seeing around the world politically can really sort of engage some of these emerging technologies to come out of the woodwork faster because people are looking for solutions to work around very frustrating structures that we have in place around the world today. So you may not want to think about this in your next year or next 2 year plan, but in your 5 and 10 year plans, most certainly you should be considering accepting cryptocurrency. And if not accepting, considering investment or business to business transaction or other um, ways that cryptocurrency may work its way into your business. So now, NFTs or non-fungible tokens. So when I was little, my little brother had a ton of baseball cards, not nearly as much as the goofy AI generated picture that I show you here today, but baseball cards were a very popular thing, right? You had a physical card and it couldn't be replicated. There were only so many printed, so there were rare ones. And these were kind of unique things. And an NFT is a one of a kind, and I say that kind of in quotes because you can mint or you can make multiple copies of a specific NFT, but like a print of artwork. or like a baseball card, you know how many were minted or how many were printed, how many were made at the time they were made. So it also utilizes the blockchain to tell you that this was the unique item that was minted, or this is the number of the print that it was, so that you know its origin, you know its trail of ownership along the way, and you're able to track that process, just like having a certificate of ownership for a signed artwork or a signed book. An NFT is that sort of collectible, one of a kind item. And it could be of an artwork. It could be, like a digital image, a video clip. It could be music. It could be an animated image. It could even just be text, like a social media post could be considered an NFT. Memes can be NFTs. Basically, anything that exists in a digital form could be turned into an NFT by putting it through the process of becoming a minted or official item that has its certificate or identifying information on the blockchain ledger. And just like those super rare, like rookie cards from the 50s of Babe Ruth or Mickey Mantle that are worth millions of dollars today when they're auctioned off by Christie's, NFTs get their value by being unique and by being scarce or rare. And believe it or not, Christie's had an NFT auction, and there were items in that Christie's NFT auction that went for millions of dollars. I was sort of I'm sort of always surprised by auctions and how much people are willing to spend on things that they think are collectibles. Um, but you know, digital items too make it that additional level of difficulty to understand. Some people are spending millions of dollars on NFT artworks and collectibles, and they're just betting that this is the next investment. And in many cases, they may not be wrong. Some of the more popular NFT applications that are still out there, one is called NBA Top Shot. And if you're not familiar with NBA Top Shot, it's basically video clips, images, collections of images of your favorite basketball teams and players. And they only mint so many of each one. You get special things, but there's anywhere from like $2 to millions of dollars for some of these NBA Top Shot things, and it's really crazy. Some of the areas where NFTs have been popular. Now, they are considered on the decline in general. Though, like I said, very recently, one of the presidential candidates, and I won't mention it because I don't want to get political, but you can look it up online very easily. One of the current candidates has a series of NFTs that he's sold, and they sold for so much that he had lunch with the people that purchased the NFTs, or we don't know why he had lunch with the people that purchased the NFTs. Not to spread news or anything, but they are out there, and they're kind of like, his baseball cards. He's putting out there these images that people can, in a sense, own these unique images of him. And anyone could do that. If you wanted, you could create an NFT of the outside of your physical business. And that picture can become an NFT that you could sell to someone if you wanted. That's a silly example. I'll give you some real life examples in a moment. But what I want you to think about is a mind shift that the concept of collectibles for the generations that are coming may not be physical. It may be these digital items that they're collecting. And it's because we're going to talk about this in a next class that we're going to talk about NFTs in the metaverse. So just real quick, I don't want to dive deep into the metaverse because we're going to talk about that in a class next week. But when you're in virtual reality, the term metaverse was kind of coined by through the Facebook process. It's hard to say where the term metaverse came up, but when you're in virtual reality, that's kind of what the concept of the metaverse is now. So you've got a virtual headset on. In this metaverse, you'll be able to do things like have your avatar customized with clothing. So there are fashion designers now that are selling NFTs of digitally designed fashion so that when you're in the metaverse, in your whatever application it may be, you can wear that highly expensive couture outfit. And in the metaverse, you're going to need to own a home. You're going to have digital real estate in that home. You're going to want to put up art, or if you're doing virtual meetings, you'll want to have a piece of artwork behind you. We saw a boom in NFTs during COVID, where people were buying them for their Zoom backgrounds so that they knew, like, I have this unique Zoom background that nobody else has because so many people were using the same Zoom backgrounds. But there's also, digital art galleries where these NFTs are being displayed in a virtual gallery that you can walk through. Also, in Seattle, there is a physical NFT gallery where you're walking through a physical gallery, but they're digital displays of NFTs that you're looking at in the gallery. So if you're ever traveling up to Seattle, you can go take a look at the NFT gallery there. And certainly if you're an artist, you might want to start considering if you should be minting your art as NFTs. Warning, other people may be stealing your artwork if you've made it digital and made it available online and making NFTs out of it already. It's not difficult to do. It does require a process, though. So I keep saying things like minted. And what that means is each of these different NFT marketplaces, and I'll show you one of the more popular NFT marketplaces. It's called OpenSea. And you'll see here, it starts off with a number of artworks these are NFTs. And they have different categories. But let's just take a look at the art and explain a little bit about how this works. So here you've got pricing that's in ETH. That is Ethereum. So you have to purchase in crypto, meaning that you already have to have a crypto wallet with cryptocurrency available to purchase. You also have to have a wallet with cryptocurrency in order to accept. But before you could make this an NFT, you have to create it. And I'll just kind of take you through real quick. So it's having me log into my wallet, which is MetaMask. And I don't have installed. So we're not going to go through the process. But in order to create, I have to have that wallet to spend money on gas to mint my NFT. And then there's also sales fees that eat up more of that Ethereum along the way. At the end, someone's going to be able to say, this is my NFT that I've collected. It's kind of an interesting poster. Quite, quite interesting NFT art going on here. But again, these are all in crypto pricing. So you have to understand your conversion and think about, is it worth your spend on that item? And if you look at these prices and you're a creator, is it worth my spend on the gas and the minting and the fees in order to turn my NFT into an item that I would then resell? And when it comes to where you display and use those NFTs, the other thing that I mentioned down here is in-game asset ownership. So games are kind of one of the first places that we saw these digital transactions happening. And if you think about in games, you're able to kind of customize your avatar with different things, and you'd have to spend money in order to get a new hat or whatever. That those are, in a sense, NFTs, except that they weren't um, verified in the same way. You didn't have that uniqueness. You didn't have that trail of ownership. But now you can create sort of unique things that no one else in the game can have, or that only a limited number can have. And this can, you know, range from different things in the game, not just, that our avatar outfit, but things like power-ups or different access, vehicles. I don't personally like very violent games, but weapons are always a thing too. So these digital assets can be used in a number of different ways. One of the concepts for tourism may be having a unique NFT to your location. If you have a unique view, maybe you take a video of that view and make the view an NFT that any of your repeat customers that hit a certain rewards level, they get a copy of that limited edition NFT of your view that they can share on social media. They can display on their smart TVs as digital art. Maybe if they're utilizing the metaverse, they can show it in their digital art space. But it's just another way for you to promote your business, which is probably the first useful activity that any of our local businesses would see with NFTs. And I do think that there are opportunities for that because people just like to show off and share. That's why the NBA Top Shot is so popular because when it comes to NBA fans, they all really want to share these experiences. So having, the limited edition LeBron James, blah, 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 is something really special to them. And I think we'll see this really mature in that sporting industry where they sort of embrace technology. Um, not, they're one of the quicker industries to embrace it. Entertainment, as a general rule, has been dominating our culture for a while now, and these concepts tend to bubble up there first. So, questions about crypto and NFTs. That's kind of a lot of information about those topics as well. Arthur's dropped a little joke here in the comments about cryptocurrency, and I could joke too that there's only one cryptocurrency that will guarantee your return. That's Modem Lisa coin. Give me your money, and I guarantee you that you will be relieved of that burden forever. Haha. Oh, you actually own that domain name. That's funny. Arthur's obvious money laundering scheme.com. Everybody go check it out. Oh, that's okay. Oh, good. We have another artist on the call. So really, that was the bulk of the material that I wanted to cover with you today. But I did want to, dive into a little more of the applications for these um, concepts. So NFT as an artist, it may be a little difficult to accept cost-wise at this point if you're not um, sort of a more popular artist that's already generating a lot of income in other ways. It's not necessarily a startup way to generate income. But what is accessible about it is kind of that if you're generating physical art today, or like I write music. So, music today, the way streaming works, it's, you pay so many fees and everything is very piecemeal. You gotta hope that they'll catch you on Spotify or Apple Music. But then there's other things that are becoming more accessible, like sharing your art on YouTube and or having a Patreon, which is sort of a subscription service. Most people in the art industry are aware of Patreon, so I say it kind of ubiquitously, but just to give a quick overview, Patreon allows for creators of any kind to offer subscriptions to access to them. So really as a Patreon, you can provide anything you want. You can provide videos, you can provide images, you can provide music, any services, one-on-one consults or voiceover, depending on what you do, you offer your Patreons the ability to pay you a monthly fee to get behind the door of the things that you're creating. So in my case, I sing and write and make videos and things like that. So I could offer my Patreons these songs as NFTs on the blockchain so that they know I've only provided a limited number to my subscribers. It's not accessible to others. And they can say, I'm one of 20 people that got access to this early demo of this song because I was a Patreon owner. And if they're betting that if Lynn becomes super famous someday, I'm going to have this limited edition NFT of the first demo of that song that became her Grammy Award winning single. And that's why that's not necessarily why they're a Patreon, but it's one of the additional things that they're getting if you're providing them NFTs as a Patreon. You could also just sell that NFT, those NFTs outright on a website. It doesn't have to be associated with Patreon, but it was just kind of easier to get there that way. Um, so it's definitely worth exploring, like I said, there are all these costs involved in the minting and selling. And the reason that Patreon became so easy to bring up is because getting the NFTs to your consumers is still kind of a challenge unless you have a website that they're frequenting already. You have to funnel them into, okay, where would they actually buy, go to the NFT marketplace to do this, because you have to go through the process of the crypto marketplace in order to sell your NFT right now, in order for the blockchain to be verified, so you are kind of paying for an intermediary service. We talk about how decentralized blockchain technology is, but at the end of the day, you still have to have these other services. They're not centralized. You can choose what you use and you can see the transparency behind it, but you still have to have third parties involved all over along the way. So I really hope that that was relevant and relatable and hopefully digestible, because these technologies are pretty cutting edge. For some of us that aren't comfortable, it can be tough. So I hope to see you next. It's next Monday, the 20th. I didn't change the top of the banner here. Sorry about that. On Monday, the 20th at 11:30, we will be talking about mobile devices and IoT, or Internet of Things, right? I'm talking about cameras. We're going to talk about devices that monitor and track different inputs, whether it may be motion sensing, temperature sensing, water sensing. There are all kinds of different Internet of Things devices that are permeating our lives and our businesses, and understanding how those devices can both bring efficiency to our business, help us with securing our business, and just overall how to prepare for more of these devices becoming ubiquitous throughout our business. So get your questions ready for Monday. And I invite you to mention your different devices, because it's going to be hopefully an interactive and exciting class. And with that, I thank you very much for joining me, and I welcome any final questions that anyone might have. Go ahead and stop my share. We'll stop the recording.